Hi everybody. We're going to try an at-home simulation for bird beaks. This is a lab that we would normally do if we were at school. So we have adapted it so that you can do it at home. Most of the materials for the simulation you can find at home. And if you can't find them at home, this is where you can get creative and see what other materials you have around the house that you could use to substitute in. If you look here on Schoology, you can see our objectives for this lab. What we're wanting you to look at is the adaptations that benefit different birds, looking at factors that are going to affect their success, meaning whether they can survive or even reproduce. And that will come later in the lab based on how many pieces of food each bird beak can eat. The introduction here, survival of the fittest is an everyday affair. One of the most basic needs of all living things is food. The ability of an animal to get enough food basically depends on two things: the type of tool the animal has and the type of food available. The two factors are dependent on each other because without the right tools, the animal can't get the food, and without the right types of food, the animal's tools are useless. To make an analogy, it's like trying to change a flat tire with garden tools. So here are our objectives. In this lab, you'll discover how these two factors interact by using bird beaks to pick up the various foods they eat. An adaptation is a characteristic that helps a plant or animal survive in its environment. Bird beaks have been adapted for many things, such as eating, defense, feeding their young, gathering, building nests, preening, scratching, courting, and attacking. The size and shape of a beak is specific for the type of food the bird gathers. For example, cardinals have heavy, thick bills used to crack seeds, and hummingbirds have thin bills to sip nectar. Other uses include sifting, sucking, cracking, crushing, spearing, tearing, picking, and probing. So the purpose of this lab, to gather enough food for yourself as the bird to be healthy and strong enough to reproduce and pass your genes on to the next generation. Here are the materials you're going to need, and like we have written here, most of these items can be found at home, but this is where you get to be creative and improvise with what you have available. All right, so we have 4 birds in this lab simulation. So representing the bird beaks would be a spoon. Any spoon does work. And that's a spoonbill bird that this represents. This says 2 skewers is an avocet. Skewers would be like this if you make shish kebabs at home. And it doesn't matter if you use the pointy ends or the flat ends. Maybe you have chopsticks. I've got some Star Wars chopsticks here. Got the green and the red. So you could use these. But that was for the avocet. Maybe you have pencils at home. You can use 2 pencils for your skewers. Tweezers. Maybe go into the bathroom, or if you have a first aid kit, see if you can get some tweezers. These are for a finch. And then the lab would call for test tube clamps, which I do not have at home. They are at school. But maybe you have a binder clip, big ones, small ones, or maybe you have chip clips from your chip bags, something that's, clippy like this. Could be your pelican. All right, now the food for your bird. The food is the prey and the birds are the predators. So the food we're going to use, pennies. And I've got a plate here. So the pennies here, these are going to be your flat clams. Throw some pennies on a plate. The marbles, these are called your fast beetles. That's what those marbles are representing. Toothpicks. We don't have any toothpicks at home, so I went outside. These are pieces of mulch I got from outside that are about toothpick size. That's where, get creative. What can you find to substitute? Rice. I've got some rice here. The rice grains, those are small insects. And then these are some dried beans that I got out of the pantry representing slugs. You also will want to have a cup or a container. This is going to be your stomach. And then, like I showed you, I have a paper plate, and that is your feeding environment. All right, so after you've gathered all these materials and whatever materials you got creative with to substitute. Here's essentially the procedure of the lab. You are going to choose a bird beak to start with, and it doesn't matter which one you start with. Choose one, have all your food, number two, scattered in the, it says box lid. That's what we had used at school. I have a paper plate here at home. Number three, you're going to pick up one food item at a time with the bird beak, not your hands. It has to be with the bird beak. And you swallow it by putting it into the cup. This is your bird's stomach. You should leave the cup flat on the table that you're working on, not like scoop it in this way. Okay, that's not how it's supposed to be done. You need to scoop it, carry it, and then drop it in. So there is some skill with this here. And if you drop the food as you're transferring it from the plate to the cup, food has to go back to the plate and you need to try again. You have 30 seconds for each bird beak. So if you want to set a timer on your phone or look at the clock, whatever you can do. We do want you to record on a piece of paper how many pieces of each food type your bird beak was able to eat. So if you started with a spoon, how many of the stick bug was it able to get? How many of the rice, the fast beetle? And it's okay if you didn't get any of some, and it's okay if you got 5 of another. But do record that on a piece of paper. We want you to repeat that for all the other bird beaks. So 30 seconds with each bird beak, and just see which ones can you get, which ones can't you get. And then in this folder, we have a discussion thread titled Bird Beak at Home Lab Results. We have some questions up at the top. You can answer all the questions that you like, respond to your classmates' answers as well, but we do ask that you at least choose any 2 of the questions to respond to tell us about your lab simulation. Also, if you can take a picture of what you're doing and upload it and share it with us, that would be great. Real quick, one thing I want to point out here is, how do you interpret the results of your simulation? Well, if you were able to eat 6 or more pieces of food during the 30 seconds, your bird not only survived, but it had enough energy to reproduce and make babies and create another generation. If in those 30 seconds you consumed 3 to 5 pieces of food, your bird survived, but it did not have enough energy to reproduce. Remember, one of the disadvantages of sexually reproducing organisms is that it takes a lot of energy. So just because it ate some food doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be able to reproduce and pass its genes on to another generation. If you only ate 0 to 2 pieces of food in your 30-second period, your bird does not survive. So, thanks for trying the simulation at home. We hope it works. Please email us with questions if you have them, and we look so forward to seeing what you post on the discussion thread.